Hi, Dan here, and I have just finished another sketchbook. This one I started right at the end of February and uh, finished it early April of this year. It was almost entirely done in March, but I did overlap a little bit. So I just thought I would talk to you a little bit about this. This sketchbook I bought when I was on vacation with my family in Chicago last summer, and I kind of like to get souvenirs that like something I can actually use. Um, so I bought myself a new sketchbook, but I didn't start it until late February. And I had never used this one before. It's the Leuchtturm. I don't know if I'm saying that right. And it is the sketchbook as opposed to the journal. So the pages are a little heavier. At first, I was very disappointed in this because I dove in trying to do some watercolor illustrations for my patrons in here. The paper did not take watercolor well at all. I was like, oh, what am I going to do with this? And ended up, just doing like some sketches and notes and things like that here and there. But then I decided to start using some other mediums in here. I used some gouache. I used acrylic paint markers, both ones that I filled myself with my own color mixes, and also some my favorite Tosca pens. Those are primarily what I used in there. I also got some Neocolor ones around this time and used a lot of those in there, as well as the Neocolor 2, which I also love. Also used a lot of matte acrylic and some other mediums. I'll try to make note as I come across them. But to start with, there's some things I really like. This is the A5 size. It's got the little band that goes around, which I like, especially as it, thickens up. And it does have a pocket in the back, which I also appreciate, even though I didn't necessarily make good use of it. But so I was dissuaded at first by the watercolor issue, but I persevered and ended up really liking this. So I still don't like it for watercolor, but it's kind of redeemed itself for other mediums. So on the front here, I have some of my own stickers that I stuck this one on there originally. I studied some Basquiat art, and I'll show you some how I study someone's art in here in a little bit. So I put a Basquiat sticker on here. That was just to kind of remind me, oh yeah, that's where those Basquiat examples are. I also have stickers on here that by this rocket and these stars are by Flimsy Fox. And then I started sticking on stickers. These are stickers that were actually made from art that I did in my sketchbook. My patrons always get these first, and then later they're available in stores and on Etsy and wherever. So let's go ahead. I always save the wrapper so that I remember, what the book is. And I put one of my printables on here. Looks like I forgot to keep crossing off. My goal, I was kind of doing the 100-day challenge where I spent time in my sketchbook every day, which I did. I just forgot to mark off. Anyway, made a little bit of notes to myself. I've started doing that because that's, really helpful, like I wrote here, not for watercolor, so that when I'm picking out a sketchbook in the future, it just reminds me. This one is one I did with my patrons where I used a napkin on here and then painted over it. And so that's what that page is. And I thought that makes kind of a pretty front page. I always don't know, like this page opens funny. So I always kind of don't know what to do with these pages. So I thought that was a good start page. And then a lot of these, I kind of went through the whole book doing one side because it does bleed through slightly here and there depending on what I'm using on it. And so I kind of went through doing one side, and then I scanned whatever I needed to scan, and then I went back and did this side of the page. So these are not in the order that I did them at all, but we won't worry about that. So this one is a collage, a mixed media collage that I added paint to on top of. This was that failed attempt there, but you know, it is what it is. There is good, bad, and ugly in all of my sketchbooks. That's just how it comes. You're not trying new things if you don't make ugly art now and then. This was just a background I made. I'll often prep pages by like use my paint pens. I had one of those rainbow colored pencils I kind of scribbled on here, but I actually really loved this. I haven't even taken the tape off of it. So I prepped this to do something else on top of it, but I just really liked it. So I'm just going to leave it for a while. Maybe eventually I'll do something on top of it, but for now there it is. In the meantime, this was even worse than the previous page, and it was like while I was working on this, it's like I didn't want that looking at me and distracting me, so I stuck this paper in on top, but you know, you don't win them all. This was, I still was trying to make a illustration for my patrons, and this one was better. I like the black. I gave up on the watercolor idea. This has some acrylic paint on it. Yeah, I'm still not wild about it, but it's okay. This one is a painted background with a collage on top of it. And this one I did just recently after doing a magazine harvest. And I think I might have posted that last week, sometime recently. This one was again an artist study. So these aren't exactly like hers, but kind of in the same style. And I will do that sometimes to try to kind of learn from an artist. And so Sketchbook is a good place to do that, where you're kind of learning what they did, why they did it. And there's like, just looking at it doesn't really educate me in the same way that like doing it, like making something that's along the same line. So that's what these are. This was some plans for new studio that we're building. This was, I had a request for some book illustrations for my patrons, and then I went back and afterwards and tried to see if I could make it kind of have a Basquiat feel, and we'll get into some more Basquiat illustrations later on in the sketchbook. A lot of this month was about studying and preparing and adapting some techniques that were based on studying Basquiat art. So this was, my top tier patrons get a maker's pack every month, and in the last maker's pack, in the March maker's pack, they got a vintage photo, and so I just took a vintage photo and tried to do use it as a reference. I'm not very happy with this, but it was kind of interesting. I used fountain pen ink here and let it bleed out a little bit, and I am kind of happy with that mark making, and that is something I think I would like to do again. So even when a piece kind of fails, there can often be something I learned from it. Some more of those books, and some collage birds with doodles on top. Yeah. This, I was kind of on that book theme and tried to make like a little storybook scene. Again, this has many layers, trying to figure out what works on this paper. So I think it started with watercolor, didn't like how that looked, went over it with paint pens and colored pencils, and I think some Neocolor on there. I don't even remember what all. This was also in the maker's pack, but something similar. Everybody got one of these painted pieces, and I really like this as is. It kind of inspires me somehow. So again, I just kind of stuck it in here and left it as is, to maybe kind of inspire some things. It's got some really beautiful color mixes and interesting textures and patterns happening here. So for now, I'm just saving it there. This is a kind of a failed page, didn't turn into anything. Same thing with this. I had some grand notion that I can't even remember exactly what it was now, and I think I got bored with it before I ever finished even expressing the idea. This is kind of pretty though. I do like these colors that are achieved here. More of those Patreon book words. This was just kind of playing around with some floral illustrations. Also didn't go anywhere. This is one of the recent ones I did, and this was from a map crunch where you just get on there and every day they have a different view somewhere in the world. And I would like to do that more, but this was just like, I try to use my sketchbook, especially I'll use it for a little while before I go to bed. And it's interesting because when I do that, I find that I wake up with ideas. So it's kind of something about getting that creative juices going before I go to sleep, and then it must be circulating in my brain and turning into ideas overnight, ready for me when I get up in the morning. But this is, so it's often done with limited supplies. And so that's one thing I like these, because I don't have to get out paints, and all of messy things. This was just playing around with the owls. I had used this as we'd written down some measurements for something that we didn't need anymore. Again, I was thinking this was only good for note taking or something, and so we had put down some measurements or something, and then we didn't need that anymore, so I just painted over it. But I kind of like that was left showing. I don't like the owl, but I like the little bits of the measurements in the drawing that was underneath. And here I was swatching out. I was kind of going through my paint cart and kind of sorting out, getting rid of, well, not getting rid of, but setting aside things that were duplicates and figuring out some mixes. I have gotten a bunch of these little canning jars, and I just, sometimes it was just, I just had a dab of paint left. And so anyway, I was making mixes, trying them out, trying out my paints, kind of seeing what's what, and getting my paint cart reorganized. I was also like trying to limit this particular paint cart to only matte acrylics. So these white lines are testing them with a colored pencil, I believe is what I was using, to see how matte they are and which paints work well. That might be a whole nother video. So again, and I really like this color that I mixed, and I put my little recipe down. I'm trying to do a better job of note-taking like that. This also was a mix that I really love and think will be very handy. I also did this, I think, after Magazine Harvest, and I'm preparing for a workshop on shape and pattern this summer. Very excited about that and some of the things we'll do. Anyway, this was done in contemplation of that and just kind of experimenting with some different things. And this was done after some of the pages that are to come. So I did some Basquiat style art. Like I said, I've been kind of studying him and seeing what about his art could be brought into my own art. And this is, so this does not look like Basquiat. It looks like my art, but there are some elements that were influenced by his work. And so that's kind of fun. It's kind of fun to see that. This one was just started out as some paint splotched down here, turned into a really kind of simple and loose landscape, which was nothing. But then I added these birds, which I do really like. So I'm kind of on well, I've been on a bird kick for years. I kind of got tired of birds for a while, and now I think I'm ready to get back to birds again because they're starting to show up in my sketchbooks again. Okay, so here is where I'm not copying precisely, but kind of imitating the style of Basquiat. I put that up there so that, you know, I like to make note when I do that of who the original artist was. So, you know, I'm just kind of looking at things he did and how he did them, and then kind of doing my own thing with it, using some of the motifs that he used in his art, and just kind of seeing what I can learn from his art. This is another Basquiat style or influenced page. And then this is another one where this is more like something I would do, but I'm bringing some of these things into this. And then here's one, even another step more removed, where I'm taking some of these things and taking it, you know, a whole nother step, and seeing where I end up, like being influenced by the black, just some interesting ideas. So this piece is, you know, okay, but it's more about the ideas that I'm developing here. So I had the idea to do some, develop my own language of motifs to use in this art. So like I made this little list of themes I wanted to try, and just some quick little sketches of how I might implement them. I'm really drawn to some of the simple shapes, and so trying to simplify a little bit. So this one was all based on tools. Then this was one I came back to later. This one, these actually became printables for my patrons for April, for Earth Day themed things. This was, I sat outside our new studio and just did a little sketch, and it was still like nothing was budding or anything yet. And so I kind of liked it. I liked these trees, but it was very plain, and especially this big blank spot here. So I thought, well, it needs a quote, needs some words there. So I found a quote that I felt like kind of fit, and then the quote inspired because it ends with "a warm air rises teemed with life." And so, you know, then I started thinking about all the little critters that are going to be starting to show up more and more as winter ends and spring arrives. And here's these birds again. Anyway, there's all kinds of little animals all over the place in here. So I ended up liking this better. This was, I was thinking about how would Basquiat do flowers. I don't think this is it, but I do think this is how I make flowers while I'm thinking about Basquiat. So I kind of enjoyed this idea of these shapes. I enjoyed making these black leaves. I think that's really striking, and I kind of liked that. So there's another influence we see there. This one still with books on my mind. I did a book themed version that's similar, and a fruit themed one. So again, these are really departing from anything that he would do, and you know, he would probably be horrified to even be connected to these, but these are some using things I learned as I'm practicing. Here's one on pets, just a bunch of little pet symbols. Again, just really having fun with it. I don't know if this one's quite finished, but this was a faith or church themed one. This was just using my paint pens again, like right before I went to sleep, and just trying to be really loose and imperfect about it. I was inspired by when I did these Kusama pieces. I was intrigued by the notion of the blue on blue and thought that it would be fun to do some doodles in here. Now, I didn't have quite enough contrast for those to be very visible, but I still think it's an intriguing idea that I might want to try again, even though it didn't turn out great here. I think there's potential to that idea. So again, I'm kind of thinking about pattern and its uses in my own art. This was another one of those before bed quick sketches. Just did a little tree blowing in the wind type idea. This was a super quick. I don't really like it, but I did this so fast with a brush pen on top of a pre-painted page, and then I went and did the negative spaces with a paint pen. This is another page that I prepped ahead, but I kind of really like it as is, so I'm just going to let it sit for a while. Still got the washi tape. This is my washi tape, by the way, that I have in my Etsy shop. Another one of these, I'm just kind of exploring this whole idea of plants and foliage and spaces and bringing in this bold black lines. This was a prepped page, and then I stuck these collage bits on it. These were the leftover cutouts from when I cut out these flowers, and I really kind of like that. I don't know what else is going to happen here, but I like the effect of this. This is, I just was wanting to try using crazy colors, so not quite complementary, but kind of close to that idea. You know, instead of green I have pink, and instead of orangey brown I have blue. Just kind of playing with shifting up color, and I actually kind of like this, how this turned out, which really surprised me that I liked these colors. They aren't my normal colors. So again, even though the illustration itself is, you know, I learned something, and that's, I guess, my goal on every page, to learn something. And you learn even from the things that don't turn out, sometimes more from the things that don't turn out. But on this page, I learned, don't think these aren't your colors, because I actually really like this color combination. Still playing with birds here. So I did this, trying to practice my urban sketching a little bit, just do some really loose, quick, trying to be really quick, and capture the essence of a scene. But again, it needed something. Here I was playing with different shapes of flying birds, and of course I just added these on here. The thing I learned here was that there is a lot of leeway, like shapes can vary a lot and it still look like a bird. So that was the learning experience from that. Here I just was kind of inspired to do a bunch of little teacups. I don't know why. Another one of those late night pages. And then this was a pre-painted page that I did this, lettered this quote by Wendell Berry on, and then used a paint pen to do the negative spaces, and that did turn into something from my patrons as well. Okay, now here I'm still thinking a little bit Basquiat, and I'm still trying to do the flowers. And again, I would not call this exactly Basquiat style by any means, but there is some influence in what I've been practicing previously that's come out in these. And I'm kind of also, I liked the shape of this. You know, it's not just a taped off shape, it's a more organic shape, filled in by these really bold black lines. This is done with a black brush pen. And then I painted the negative spaces with the paint pens. So very fun. I think I added some white highlight on here too. And then an interesting thing that happened when I was trying to get my black going is I just got a blob of paint, and it was this one right here, and it looked like a cat to me. So then that got me thinking about blob-shaped animals. Don't know what I would do with blob-shaped animals, but that's how that page came about. So I'm still exploring these flowers in these shapes. These did turn into printables for my patrons in April. This was another map crunch that I just very quick, maybe 5-minute or so sketch of a map crunch scene with a brush pen. It's a Pentel brush pen, and it has permanent ink in it. So if I wanted to go back and, watercolor or something on top of my sketches with it, I could. So that's one thing I like. And I've used it, like I used it on these flowers. I used it a lot in this sketchbook. Here's another blowing tree with some foliage drawn in. Again, this was all done with paint pens and that black Pentel brush pen. Trying to be loose in this. Okay, this was an idea. I'm still kind of on this bird theme. This was supposed to be an owl. It's all wrong. But I started with a pre-painted page that somehow the shapes in it made me think of trees. And so I tried to do paint negative space around there. And I was also really thinking about birds flying above houses. I think I was still thinking about that urban sketch one I did with the birds up above. I was thinking about how much I'm enjoying black in the pieces that I'm doing in this sketchbook, and thought it would be fun to do an owl in the night sky, thinking about houses down below. I don't know, this I think has potential to become a piece of art. It is not good in and of itself, but I am glad that I got the idea down. And I know, you see owls flying over housetops all the time. That's not a particularly novel idea, but the ways like using the pre-painted background and then just doing the negative spaces, there's elements of it that were more my style. Still with owls on the mind, and these are some pre-painted pages. I love the texture in these. I think those turned out, the backgrounds turned out really nice. And I was trying to do some simple kind of wonky owls. They are definitely wonky. So just playing around with that, being loose again, letting some of this background show through in here. Still playing with the same flower idea with this kind of organic shaped rectangle with a lot of black brush pen work on top of a pre-painted page, and then painting the negative spaces. These are similar. These were done in kind of with the idea of being a book spine. So you see how everything just kind of interconnects and inspires me. So these with the whole book idea that I had been doing for March sheets, still have books circling in my mind. And so the combination of these flowers with the black, with these book spine, and these actually started as paint swatch, like mixing colors. And I just did these strips of it, and it turned into book spines with this one's kind of fall themed foliage. This one I really like. This was again on a prepared page, did the same kind of border, still playing with the flowers, with the contrast to black. This time, instead of painting the negative space, I painted the positive, and I painted black leaves with the white petals. And I really like that effect. This was kind of a sketch of a similar type thing that never went any further. And this, I just had the urge to do a bunch of mushrooms. So this was just a fun little doodle page. I'm pretty sure I did this while my husband and I were watching a movie. And this, yet another floral theme. When I get something that I'm trying out, I keep doing it and keep, till I feel like I've kind of run the course of the idea. So I did several of these. 2 more. I like how these irises turned out. This was with you can see the brush strokes, very loosely painted background. But this again is a color combination that I would not necessarily have thought of. This is actually a yellow paint pen, but on top of the purple, it turned kind of this interesting green. And I kind of like that color combination. So that, again, that's something that I may remember to use. Okay, and then I bought a rainbow pencil. I had many rainbow pencils, but I bought a new one, and of course had to try it out. So I just doodled up these butterflies. And then I did a painted butterfly over here, just doodling. Thinking about all the different patterns that a butterfly can come in, like all the different things you can do, and it still looks like a butterfly. Here's a collage bit that was done after I did a magazine harvest. Very simple, but I kind of like the effect of that. This was, I went to visit an art museum, and I had a alcohol ink marker with me, and I just sat and did a little session of just drawing. These weren't all there at the same time, but as people passed by, I was sitting in the lobby. As people passed by, I just did a super quick, like sometimes it's only 30 seconds or something. I didn't have very long, just while they were in the area, and did super quick sketches of them, because I definitely need to practice drawing people, and so that was a good way to practice. Low stakes. And then it soaks through, because it was an alcohol marker, soaked through the page, of course. But then I kind of went on the back side and tried to still be very quick, but I had that rainbow pencil and just did quick little takes on those images. So twice removed from the actual person, but kind of interesting idea. These were some notes that I took while I was at the art museum, and just kind of ideas I got that I wanted to get down. An artist and an artwork that I wanted to look up. And then this was also for a Patreon sheet for April showers, and I live in Kansas. It gets kind of stormy sometimes, and so just think with that concept, and I kind of liked the idea of just being black and white. This was, I did a sketch session at a local bookstore, because again, I want to improve my urban sketching, or my quick sketches, like on location. So I'm trying to practice that a little bit. So this was in a Barnes & Noble bookstore, and just trying to like boil down the essence or the feel of the scene without a lot of time. And so that's something I'm really working on. This was in another sketch, similar, in a little bookstore coffee shop in a totally different town, and just trying to do what I could see in my field of vision that would fit on the spread. So had a lot of fun with this one. I liked this one better. This felt better to me for some reason. had to figure out how I wanted to indicate bricks, and so I worked on that. I think that'll be a useful thing to know. Here's another collage done with magazine cuttings. I did this with my patrons, I believe, and I was just showing how I test the paper on here and how things work on the page. And then just after the fact, I had all these swatches, so I thought, well, I ought to label what each of these are. Like I have nail color 1, nail color 2, Tombow marker, different things. And so I just went back with that same black brush pen that I've been using and just labeled everything so that I could have an idea. Here I was doing a comparison of nail color 1 and nail color 2 and just what the differences are, and I posted a video on that, so you can go back and watch that. In the process though, this bled through, so that is one thing to be aware of. On these pages, they do bleed through a little more than I am accustomed to, so you have to be a little bit cautious about that. Some more flowers in this little rectangle blob, and more book spines. I was again trying out these nail color 1 and nail color 2 crayons on top of this matte acrylic paint. Here I started to draw raindrops. I think it was around the same time I was doing the clouds and storms. And I was going to make like each of these have a pattern, but then I thought these would look a lot better cut out of just different patterned paper. So that's what I did instead. Made a whole slew of raindrops here. And here is some more notes. Let's see, I think this was for a workshop I had coming up. I was having to write something up for an art residency that I'm doing this summer, and I think this was some notes that I made, as I was thinking about that. Oh yeah, here I wrote residency plans. So these are just kind of rough notes, what I plan to work on during my residency. And then here I was listening to The Artist's Way again. I had read it years and years ago, decided it was time for me to revisit that. So listening to it on audiobook, and I had that rainbow pencil again, and just was like kind of jotting things down that she talked about that resonated in some way. I also always use this back page as a place to, like, if I need to get a pen working or need to clean off a paintbrush or things like that, and I always use this back page of every sketchbook. I use it that way, so it's just kind of a catch-all messy page. And then that is the end. It does come with these 2 really nice ribbon bookmarkers that I don't think I used at all, but they are very nice. And that is the close of the sketchbook. So here you can see some of the stickers that I made from some of those illustrations in there. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.